Welcome back, everybody, after the break. So our final talk for this afternoon is from Jessica Hargreaves from the University of York, and she's talking to us about students as statistical consultants, ideas and experience. So thank you very much, Jess.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I really appreciate it. As been said, I'm going to talk to you about students as mainly statistical, but in general, mathematical consultants. So the idea is to give you a flavour of what we've been up to and then maybe discuss that a bit further. So the background context to this is that, universities were often criticised for not adequately preparing students for the workplace, particularly in maths. We were talking about this earlier. It's exam period, exam marking time. And a common criticism is that the testing of taught content through exams doesn't really reflect the real world where you need to apply that knowledge and maybe don't need to memorise things. And then finally, statistical consultancy is a career option for many students, but not all universities have an approach of how to sort of transfer those skills to students. So that's the context. And so the plan for today is to give you 3 examples of some assessments that I've been involved with in the past, where students are working collaboratively with companies on real world problems. And then, as I said, we're going to chat about those experiences and then the lessons learned and plans for the future as well. The key thing I want to get across today is the idea of these things is that they should be, real projects with real data for real clients that could make a real difference. So the key thing here is the authenticity of these projects. And in particular, the 3 examples I'm going to talk about today was basically just a like-for-like swap. There was already an assessment in place. There was a coursework where students were analysing some data. And the idea is, can you just switch that out to be one of these consultancy-style projects instead? So there's 3 examples we're going to focus on today. The first one is from an Introduction to Probability and Statistics module. That's a first-year module at the last place I worked at, which is Sheffield Hallam University. Then we'll move on to 2 further examples from my current institution, the University of York. So we've got a 3rd-year, 4th-year module called Statistical Pattern Recognition that we'll talk about. And then finally, there's a final year or master's dissertation module as well that we're going to look at. Starting off with that 1st-year module then. The details are, this is a compulsory module. It's actually in the 1st term of the 1st year. And there was already a group project for the coursework that consisted of an open project analysing a data set using techniques from the course. And in the past, this was always, one of the famous data sets that we all know and love, like the birth weight data set might ring some bells for people. And so, the students were asked to analyse that in a group. And so, like we said, we thought, I wonder if we could just switch this out. Instead of it being a famous data set, maybe they could work on some real problems for some real clients. And I've put the logos there of the companies and charities that we worked with. In fact, actually, I think all of these are charities. So Grimm & Co. is this red one at the top left, and then Premier League Kicks, Drinkwise, Agewell and Epic. So this very much was these charities had data, had some problems that they would like analysed, don't have the skill set to do that, so enter our students who could already answer some of those questions using techniques from the module. The next example, we're at the University of York now, and we're in our 3rd or 4th year, so this is an optional module for people. And the coursework for this module was a consultancy project. You had to analyse a data set, again, using the techniques from the course. And in the past, this had always been some kind of fake, engineered, pretend client that had a problem for you that you needed to investigate. Now, as a stepping stone, this year we've switched that out, and instead of it being a fake client, it's actually my colleague from the biology department who came along with a data set that they were analysing and said a similar thing. I'm a biologist, I know some stats, but it'd be great if you could apply the techniques you've learned from your module and see if you can deliver any further insights for us. So again, the students acting as statistical consultants in this case. Finally then, the third example is the final year project or master's dissertation. So currently it's compulsory that all our final year students complete one of these projects in their final year. And the students select a project from a database. So there's the academics think up projects, put them into a database, and then the students kind of pick their top 5, rank them, and then an algorithm does the allocation. And the idea is here that the content of your final year project should be at or beyond the final year level. So once again, the idea was rather than just Jess thinking up a project and putting that into the database, what if we had an external partner, so a company or a charity, that helped or came up with a project, a question for the students to investigate, and then we worked together and we put those into the database for the students to pick from. And again, I've put some examples of some of the companies that we've worked with here on the right-hand side. Now, I should say that this is slightly different. Some of them, for example, West Yorkshire Police, it very much is in that model of a consultancy. So we don't have the capability to do these sorts of things. It'd be great if the students could. But some of the other companies there, for example, Adelphi Values, they are a statistical consultancy company. So this is a bit more like a taster internship feel to this project. So it's not necessarily doing something that this company couldn't do. It's maybe more getting an insight into what this company does. So slightly different. And I should say on this slide that this is where we're not necessarily statistics projects here. We do have them from applied mathematics as well. So we've got Crypto Labs, which is quantum information theory, and CFAS there, which is our applied mathematicians. So there you go, not just talking about statistics today. So they're a really quick overview of the 3 case studies we've got. And the idea now is we'll talk about the sort of lessons learnt and experiences we've had delivering those 3 things. So I've tried to be positive with this, and I've got my little icons here to show on the left-hand side some of the challenges that are involved with doing these sorts of assessments. And then we'll end on a positive note, we'll think maybe about some of the benefits. So starting with the challenges, there is a risk involved in these sorts of projects. So if you're getting the students to analyse a famous data set that's been analysed a million times before and it's in textbooks, you sort of know it's going to deliver what you want it to deliver. If you're using a path less well-trodden, there is a risk that it won't be exactly what you want it to be. That can be mitigated by doing the coursework yourself before. But that's not possible with these final year projects. You can't do a final year project yourself. So there is a risk involved in that maybe this assessment doesn't quite deliver what you want it to deliver. And as we've alluded to already there's going to be a bit more of a time investment in these sorts of projects than there would normally be. And I would say that's the main thing. These things do take more time from the people running them. Another challenge is sourcing the external partners. Now at Sheffield Hallam University, we were really lucky. They actually had a unit at Sheffield Hallam University that does exactly this, that sets up academics with external partners to provide student projects. So that was brilliant. They took a lot of the hard work away from us, and we were working with them for a few years, and they started to realise, exactly what we wanted from an external partner. So that was absolutely brilliant. At the University of York, we don't have quite the same unit here. We've got various things, so it's a little bit more difficult to source external partners. It can be that it's, academics who already have a link, building on that one. There has been some cold calling, networking, trying to get any external partners that we can find and work with them. Another challenge is confidentiality. So if you want to do something that could make a real difference to a client, they might be sharing data with you. That brings its own challenges. At the University of York, again, we're lucky. We've got a legal team who have been working with us for a few years. So they are absolutely fantastic at this and really help us get these sort of confidentiality agreements sorted if they're required. So it takes time, but as I say, we're lucky that we have a lot of the hard work taken away from us. There's also an ethical consideration in a few ways with these projects. For example, that West Yorkshire Police project, without going into too much detail, there is ethical considerations with some of these projects that you just wouldn't have with those classic data sets. Also, the ethics of the whole thing. So the students are doing consultancy work for free, so you do need to think carefully about that. A challenge that I've put in there, and I think this is maybe specific to the structure that we have at York, where with those final year projects where students are choosing things from a database, I don't know how many students are going to pick to do an industrial project. So beforehand, I don't know how many of these things I need. So it really is difficult to try, and I don't want to, put a load of time in setting up an external one of these projects, and then a student doesn't pick it and you have to let the partner down. So that kind of makes my life more difficult, but I think, again, it's an artifact of the structure we have. And finally, managing expectations both sides. So it's difficult to manage the expectation of the external partner, so what we might be able to deliver, and similarly manage the expectations of the students as well, what they should expect from everything. But so they're the challenges that we've faced so far, summarised, and now let's move on to some of the more positives. The main idea is that it should be something that's mutually beneficial. So something that's really beneficial for the students, giving them a fantastic experience. But hopefully, so this works best when it's something that actually the external partner wants you to do, and you are actually delivering something that they couldn't do without you. So that's the dream scenario. Some of those benefits for the students include, employability, lots of transferable skills. The idea is it hopes to be inspirational in many ways. Like we say, if you're doing one of those projects where you're working with an external partner that does this sort of work, it gives you an insight into those sorts of careers and maybe opens your eyes to careers that you didn't think were possible or didn't know existed. On another angle, we hope that there's a benefit as well for the academics that are involved in working with these projects. So the idea is it gets academics talking to the external partners as well. So hopefully there's potential for knowledge exchange and impact as well. And similarly, networking. And then the final point that I've put on there, this is what one of the academics that supervises these final year projects said to me, was she feels that this is potentially an AI-proof coursework, because the whole point is that nobody's done it before. So hopefully that's given us something that's a bit more robust, perhaps. And then just before we finish then, a few words on what our plans for the future are. So at the University of York, we've got a new data science BSc, MSc coming in. And the idea is that will have a compulsory dissertation project that would be one of these, what we call industrial projects. So that is in our future. We've got lots of plans for that. As I said before, when we were talking about that third year module with the consultancy coursework, where we used a project from a colleague in biology, that was our first stepping stone into this world, but it would be, I think, much more beneficial if we could work with external partners, so somebody from outside of the University of York. Because for many reasons. So that's our next step, but again, it's a bit more challenging than working with somebody who is an academic. And then again, something that I think is going to make my life more difficult, but I'm crossing my fingers that it makes it easier, is that actually next year at the University of York, the final year project will not be compulsory, so it will become optional. So this is going to become, as it stands, an option within an option. So there'll be even less certainty about how many projects we need, but I might have to think about how to format that moving forward. So these are the things that are in my head at the moment. So the main reason that I wanted to talk to everybody today was that I really would like to take this opportunity to network. So if you do this sort of thing in your institution, it would be great to talk to you so that we can share these experiences, share the lessons learned, and share best practice. If you're interested in setting this type of thing up in your institution, I'd also be really delighted to talk to you as well. And potentially, I don't know with this crowd, but you never know. Do you know somebody who could be a good external partner? Are you married to somebody who could be a good external partner? That's how we've got quite a few of these. So yeah, if somebody's jumping out into your head as, oh yes, they'd be a good person to work with Jess's students, then again, please get in touch. So for all of those things, please get in touch, and I've put my email address at the bottom there. It's my name with a dot in the middle at york.ac.uk. And that's everything from me today.
Okay, thank you very much. As I've said before, people can react by there's a little heart button at the bottom of the screen. You can do little virtual claps there. Right, so we haven't got any questions in the Q&A. So if people want to put some questions in there, I don't think anybody's put anything in the chat either. So maybe I'll just say we've had a similar sort of thing here at Leeds for second years, where we've called it Maths at Work, and we've actually had external partners. Some of it's not done by externals, but we've had to reuse year after year the same projects. I mean, so you seem to be suggesting that to make it AI proof, you'd just be running it, and surely if it was run for a couple of times, then it wouldn't be AI proof. And I think there's no way we could have generated enough projects. So have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so at the moment we are not necessarily recycling the same things year in, year out. So I like to have well, I don't want to use this word actually, but a churn of these projects that's minimising our fantastic external partners. Sometimes they do work though, where, especially those final year projects, sometimes there is kind of a legacy of it does take 2 or 3 years of these things to get to where you want to be. So the first student's doing the first, rung on the ladder and then so on. So yeah, we tend to not really do more than 3 years of the final year projects with the same external partners, unless we can see that there's a clear progression. But yeah, so with those ones, we don't tend to do the same thing year in, year out. And with the modules, yeah, again, we'd do a different one every year.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so like I said, so this is time, because yeah, it all takes time. But there's little efficiencies you can find if you've already kind of done some of this work already. That's why we ended up with my colleague in biology, because I'd kind of done that one, so it was ready to go. But yeah, that is a good question, and yeah, in a sense, it wouldn't be AI proof. But if they're sharing the data with you, then it should absolutely be AI proof, because the students are signing things to say that they're not going to be sharing this data widely, so they shouldn't be giving it to an AI bot.
But they do share data.
Yeah, but they do.
That's the problem. But anyway, so we've got some questions, and we've still got a bit of time. So there's the first question from Eleanor is saying, can you say more about managing expectations about the problem of weak students stroke poor quality work?
Oh, that's a really good question. So with the with these final year projects, we do interview the students before. So, and we make that clear to our external partners. It tends to be, though, when we say this to our external partners, that we don't usually base it on grades. We base it on an interview, and I'm thinking, is this person going to represent the University of York in a positive light? And if the answer is yes, we can see that they're passionate about it, we would, let the student have a go at the project. Because yeah, it does seem to be that you can't really predict how well students are going to do with these things. I think this is similar with final year projects. Like sometimes it just suits people that haven't been maybe scoring well in exams. So we do sort of screen the students for these projects, but it's mainly in terms of, are you gonna, put in a load of effort and paint us in a good light. When we're doing these sorts of things where it's kind of like everybody on a whole cohort, so everybody on a module, and particularly this one here where it was everybody, so this first year, the way we did that was, and again, I think this is a nicer way of doing these sorts of projects. So we had, as you can see here, in the first year we did it, we had 4 different external partners. So 4 projects that the students could sign up to. So we asked them to rank them. And then they got allocated to one of those 4. So the idea is there, where you've got replicates of students doing things, the hope is that, you know, there's you'll get a range of student profiles in there. I don't want to use any controversial words, but as I said, the great thing about Sheffield Hallam was that unit that helps set you up with the external partners, and they're really good at explaining to the universities, right, this is a everybody module, so there's going to be a range of students in this, you know, in this module. So they were really good at managing those expectations there. So hopefully that answers that question. But they've been my 2 tips: either screen students in some way, or if it's everybody, then maybe to try and have, you know, not just one student working with one company, so that perhaps you're increasing your you know, probability of one student coming out with something really useful for them.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. We've got another question. There's one from Nick. I guess a lot of projects will require coding experience to analyze company data. Do the students have much coding experience, stroke, how is this handled? I guess the second part is probably a bit more important.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Again, so when this is in the module, the idea is that yes, if it's embedded in a module, it should be that it's testing the things that you would do in the module. So both of those modules, so this one that we've got on the screen now and this one here, that very much was part of it. You're learning the statistical techniques, you're learning how to implement them, you know, on a computer in this case. And then, like I say, in the olden days, there was a coursework where you analyze those things. So yeah, you needed to have the coding skills to be able to really go away and do the coursework. So in those 2, it's an assessment for a module. So yeah, if you need it to do it, then you should have taught them it somewhere. In the final year projects, the way that we not get around this, but how we would address this is that, so when we're putting the projects into the database, so if I'm just thinking of my own project, you kind of would put the modules that you think a student would need to have done, or if they need coding experience. So we do a similar thing. We work with the companies to try and think about what. So I think the quick way actually to respond to this is, when we're working with these companies, we try and think about what would this look like if I as an academic was putting this project into the database. So what does it look like without the external partner? What modules would I expect the student to have done and things. And so, yeah, you can put prerequisites in, but with the final year project, you've got a full year. So if perhaps the coding isn't quite, you know, up to the level, then you have got a year to kind of either send them off to, you know, some of the library has good, you know, tutorials and workshops to teach them the necessary coding skills. So hopefully that answers those questions. But yeah, the idea of the first 2 is it's an assessment testing stuff, so the students should have what they need to be able to do it.
Right, indeed. Okay, well, thanks very much for that. I think we do have another question, but I think in the interest of time, we'll just say thank you very much for giving your talk, sir.